Historic transition has set off deadly protests. The U.S. Embassy in Israel has officially moved from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem on the 70th anniversary of Israel's founding.
Palestinians are condemning the move because they want Jerusalem to be their future capital. Thousands protesting along the Gaza-Israel border and dozens killed. Kicking on political reporter Dave Bryan joins us now with the very latest on this story and lots of local reaction as well.
It was amazing, the contrast between the celebration in Jerusalem and the conflict and deadliness really at the border, just miles away. The celebration of the new U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem now has created joy for many of its supporters. But protesters and critics are outraged, charging it has already created violence and hatred, including the deaths of more than 50 Palestinian protesters at the border. And for the Trump administration, it's another campaign promise made good, for better or worse. To the leaders of Israel, this was a historic moment, American recognition that Jerusalem is the true capital of the country, and opening the U.S. Embassy there to prove it is a giant step forward to international recognition.
President Trump, by recognizing history, you have made history.
President Trump participated too with a video message and sent a delegation led by his daughter Ivanka and son-in-law Jared Kushner to join the celebration.
While presidents before him have backed down from their pledge to move the American embassy once in office, this president delivered. Because when President Trump makes a promise, he keeps it.
But just across the border with Gaza, tens of thousands of protesters turned out to demonstrate against the U.S. Embassy's new home in Jerusalem, armed with rocks they threw over the border wall into Israel. And while most of the protesters were peaceful, some others started fires along the border fence. The culmination of frustration after 6 weeks of protests, attracting an estimated 40,000 protesters on Monday, encouraged by Hamas, which has controlled the Gaza Strip for 11 years. The Israeli consul general in L.A. told me in a phone conversation this evening that it was Hamas, a terrorist group, which spearheaded the violence.
The violence that we witnessed on our border to the south is not because of Jerusalem and is not because of the opening of the embassy in Jerusalem. Unfortunately, what we witnessed are really violent terror riots. You know, they're trying to characterize these as civilized or human rights peaceful demonstrations. And I can tell you, Dave, unfortunately, it's not Woodstock and these are not flower children.
But those on the other side tell a very different story. Israeli soldiers dropping tear gas canisters from drones after they dropped leaflets warning the protesters not to get too close to the border fence. And when they did, the Israelis used live ammunition. There were plenty of casualties who were carried back from the fence, many of them with gunshot wounds in a scene of total chaos. The Palestinians want to return to lands they fled in 1948, when the state of Israel was founded. And they're furious over what they say is America's overwhelming bias in favor of Israel. So they fought back with slingshots and burning tires, including 6 children who were reportedly killed. One of the protesters told CBS News they have no choice.
Dying here is the only way, or expressing, or at least expressing our feeling to the world, show them that we are dying every day here.
Outside the Israeli consulate in L.A., a small group of protesters gathered to peacefully protest the opening of the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem, which they charge is inflammatory and pouring gasoline on the fire in the region.
The move is a provocation, a slap in the face to all colonized Palestinians. This is not about peace. This is about land grabs, land seizure, the ongoing occupation and brutalization of a subjected indigenous people.
Estee Chandler from the group called Jewish Voice for Peace says many members of her family live in Israel, but she joined the protest Monday against the U.S. Embassy moving to Jerusalem.
The U.S. as the closest ally of Israel should be in a position to pressure Israel in a time like this to stop the illegal slaughter of innocent civilians, of unarmed protesters in Gaza, and yet they further provoke violence by making moves like they did today.
The chasm between the protesters and those who celebrate the embassy move has never seemed to be larger. Supporters say not only is Hamas responsible for the violence, but they say moving the embassy may actually push both sides to look for ways to address the problems in the region and make a fresh start. Los Angeles Rabbi Marvin Heyer is the dean and founder of the Simon Wiesenthal Center and the Museum of Tolerance. He attended the celebration of the new embassy and fully embraced it.
This is a moment in history that will never be forgotten, that since the creation of the State of Israel, that this is the time that America finally said that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. And it's the capital of Israel not for now, not for tomorrow, but for eternity.
Now, in the response to the Jerusalem embassy opening and the anger and violence surrounding that, the United Nations Security Council is now set to meet tomorrow to discuss the situation. It was the deadliest day at the Israeli-Gaza border since the cross-border war. That was in 2014. And both the Palestinians and the Israelis are calling on the UN to condemn the other side. Jeff, Lena, back to you.